we're counting down the top teams in college football. We're at number 6 in our countdown as we count and push towards number 1. Let's fire it up with number 6 in the E and Rod B. Horn Top 20 Countdown. Florida State Seminoles, Rod. Florida State Seminoles.
Hey, I know that song. I know that fight song. No, Florida State. Florida State's got, we talked about this with the schedule this year with Florida State. Florida State early on plays a really, really hellacious schedule. You'll learn a lot about Florida State early on.
Here we go.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. We could have just hummed it, honestly. Let's be honest.
That's really their fight song?
Yeah.
The Tomahawk Chop?
The War Chant.
The War Chant.
With groove.
Yeah. I'd say everybody knows. It's one of probably the most recognizable fight songs out there.
I'm surprised that hasn't been canceled yet.
I believe they actually have an agreement with the Seminole Nation.
Right.
Florida State actually does have an agreement with the Seminole Nation itself. So I believe that's why.
Right.
And that goes back, I don't know how long, but it's been established for a long time.
It's been established.
And they bring on that it's not
demeaning.
Yes, and I believe they contribute to the tribe, that type of stuff. So it's different.
Yeah, Seminole Nation has agreed to it.
Yeah. So
but here's the question for Florida State, and then you can go deep dive, Rod. I mean, when Bobby Bowden was there, who was in your house once for a recruiting visit back in the day.
Yes, he was, man. Yes, he was.
From 1987 to 2000, they won 10 or more games every year.
Automatic.
1987 to 2000.
Man, this is Mac Brown's mentor.
Yes.
So this is Mac Brown learned how to do it.
Under Jimbo Fisher, Florida State won 10 or more games 6 of 7 years from 2010 to 2016. But over the last 5 seasons, they've run a grand total of 20 games before last year. Not good.
Not good.
Not good. Last year, they won 10 games, though. They went 10-3. And under Mike Norvell, remember he came in from Memphis.
No, Mike Norvell's a good coach. I've been a Mike Norvell fan for a little while. Love it. He's one of the offensive minds in college football that loves 2 tailback sets. So I remember going back and looking at his film, watching the 2 tailback sets he uses a lot of.
Well, and last year they started 4-0, including a win over LSU in that crazy Labor Day weekend game. Then they lost 3 in a row to Wake, NC State, and Clemson, and they were 4-3, but they didn't lose again. They won out and included beating Oklahoma in the Camping World Cheez-Its Bowl.
Oklahoma.
Or the Camping World Stadium Cheez-It Bowl, 35-32. Beat Florida at the end of the year at Doak Campbell. Beat Miami in Miami. So people are starting to think with Jordan Travis, this 6th-year quarterback, that they might be back, Rod. They might be back, and kind of like Texas. Is this the year they take that next step?
How about this little stat for Florida State? For their 2023 projected offensive starters, I'm just going to go down the list and talk about the way that Florida State acquired that player. Jordan Travis, transfer. Trey Benson, transfer. Johnny Wilson, transfer. Keon Coleman, transfer. Winston Wright, transfer. Jaheim Bell, transfer. Bless Harris, transfer. Casey Roddick, transfer. Morris Smith recruited. Dimitri Emmanuel, transfer. Jeremiah Byers, transfer. You could argue that Florida State has hit the transfer portal as hard as anybody the last couple of years, and it's worked out for them, actually. They've done it right. They've prioritized that transfer portal so they don't have to have that the rebuild takes so long that they can try to expedite this turnaround for Florida State. And so far, it's worked out, but there's no doubt this season, the schedule that they got to play, that's what I worry about. I think the team is actually a good team. I worry about the schedule, man. I mean, they got a lot of hype on them, but how about this? You got LSU and Clemson in the first 4 weeks of the season.
Yes.
That's brutal.
Well, and, you as you said, they heavily in the transfer. Jordan Travis, their quarterback's a transfer.
Yeah, whole damn offense damn near is a transfer.
Best receiver is Johnny Wilson, 6'7", 6'7" receiver, 235, 240 pounds.
He's got some length on him.
He's an Arizona State transfer who averaged close to 21 yards per catch last year. Remember, their top running back one of their top running backs was Treshaun Ward. He transferred to K-State to replace Deuce Vaughn.
Yep, that's a good point.
But they still have Trey Benson and a good group of backs. And on defense, their best defensive player is this kid, Jared Verse.
Yeah, defensive end, right? It's a D lineman.
And he's
D
a transfer from Albany.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, actually. I didn't realize he was a transfer from Albany. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if anybody has hit the transfer portal as hard as Mike Norvell has in recent years to try to turn this thing around. And he's done a really good job identifying talent there and cultivating that talent. This is the year that it's supposed to all pay off for Florida State. Like I said, I'm not worried about the team. They got the talent. I am worried about those first 4 weeks of the season where you got to start off and play LSU and Clemson. Now, hell, you split those games. I mean, you're okay. Hell, you win both of them, you're, number 3 in the country potentially, or something like that.
And now
potentially,
you're setting yourself up for a run.
But if you lose both,
yeah.
Well,
they also have to play that
bad
game
way to start.
So they play LSU. Remember last year they played it at the Superdome in New Orleans, so it was kind of a home game for LSU. This year it's in Orlando, on a neutral site, but it should be a more Florida State friendly crowd.
Yeah.
You know those Cajuns will travel, but it still should be Florida State friendly. September the 3rd, a week from tomorrow. Then they play Southern Miss, who's usually a pretty good team out of the Sun Belt Conference.
Yeah.
And then they go to Boston College, which you never know, right? BC ahead of the Clemson game. That can't be a look-ahead game for them because you know they're going to be if they beat LSU, who's a top 5 team. We'll get to them next week with Brian Kelly. Then you got Clemson, who we had at number 9 in our countdown with Cade Klubnik and Dabo Swinney. Then it's an open date. And you're right, the schedule, man, we'll know pretty quick where this team is because the rest of the way, if they are able to survive that, Rod, and as you said, climb into the top, I mean, obviously the Clemson is going to be a tough one at Death Valley. But even if you're 3-1, if they're to beat LSU neutral,
you're good. You're golden.
Go to Clemson, play tough. Now you're open, and then you play Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Duke, all at home. They go to Wake Forest. They go to Pitt, Miami, North Alabama, and then at Florida to wrap up the season. All of a sudden, if they come to that open date with 1 loss, they got a chance to be a team that we're talking about late.
Yeah, they're sitting pretty. They're in the catbird seat if they can get to that open date with 1 loss, splitting that LSU or Clemson matchup. But they beat both of those teams, and they're undefeated at that point. Yeah, they'll be a top 3 team in the country by the time they end up playing Virginia Tech. What they cannot do is lose both of those games.
Right.
They lose both of those games. Then you're talking about that is going to be a lot of kind of anticlimactic start to the season for them.
And they very well could.
All the hype.
I mean, those are 2 top 10 teams.
Oh, I'm saying like they could, and it still wouldn't mean they wouldn't end up being a good team. They still end up winning double-digit games that season. But all the hype right now is that this Florida State team is going to be back to contending for championships. And if you can't beat Clemson with big dog in that conference, and then can't beat LSU, then the talk about championships is going to fade quick.
It will, and I do like Jordan Travis, the quarterback. I mean, he's a 6th-year player, very accurate, and he's not the best quarterback you're going to see in the country. They're better, but at the same time, he's a reliable player. And 6th-year players, man, the experience that comes with that, I think is tremendous. And
they want to run the ball.
Yeah,
Florida State wants to run the rock.
Well, that matchup at quarterback in week 1 is going to be really good. The LSU quarterback, Jalen Daniels, is a Heisman candidate. Remember, we went through the Heisman odds. He's top 3 for Heisman in the preseason with Brian Kelly. Jordan Travis, really good player. That'll be a fun game. Florida State, that was your it school when you were growing up.
Florida State was the school I was definitely going to go to. I had my mind made up, but I had 5 schools I chose to narrow down my choices to, and that was Texas A&M, Florida State, Penn State, and Colorado. I took a visit there too. Took a visit to Florida State. Took a visit to A&M. Took a visit to Texas. Did not take a visit to Penn State. If everybody wants to know.
So when Bobby Bowden was in your living room,
oh man,
did he win your mama?
He did. My mom loved Bobby Bowden. He's such a lovable country country boy. But he was great. And usually Bobby wouldn't recruit corners my size. Actually, the corners that he recruited are much bigger. But like Jerry said, I think he loved my speed that I could run. I think I was clocked like a 4.3 something even back then. So he was excited about Robbie could run, and he knew I loved Deion. So I think he thought it was in the bag. Nobody really prepared for a young Mac Brown to be a recruiting, phenomenon, to be the closer he was. Remember, he was coming from North Carolina.
So the assumption was you're going to A&M or Florida State?
Pretty much. Early on, yeah. Until Mac Brown came in the picture, and then we all know the rest is history.
Well, that makes sense now, because you told me that R.C. Slocum told you
stay in the state.
Stay in the state.
He didn't say
he was trying to keep you away from Bobby Bowden.
Yeah, he was. He's actually stay in the state, because he assumed if I stay in the state, I'm going with the Aggies. Yeah. The Aggies were the wrecking crew at the time. They're all about defense. Hell, the Aggies won. They won their Big 12 title like the Mac's first year. So they were still like a good team. That was their Big 12 title year around that time, like 98, 99, somewhere around there. So the Aggies were trending. Texas was not an it school back then. They were not necessarily sexy or cool. I think Ricky Williams and his Heisman campaign really brought them back to that kind of cool factor. Texas being an it school, and then Mac Brown, of course, took it to another level. But yeah, I think the assumption was, those guys aren't going to Texas. Texas is rebuilding. They're reinventing their brand. And then he gets Sims. He gets Corey Redding. Gets Rod B. And a lot of other guys, too. Yeah. So I think they basically slept on Mac Brown. They shouldn't have slept on Mac. If they would have acknowledged that Mac was a real threat, I think they could have eliminated him earlier in recruiting. They didn't. They just kind of let him walk through the raindrops unchallenged. And Mac was like, cool.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll sell myself, and he did.
Mac talking that hungry dog off a meat wagon.
Oh, he can sell sand to a beach. And he had,
Sand?
don't forget, he had Tim Brewster,
Tim Brew.
the recruiting, the Ric Flair of recruiting, who's
The
now with
Rainmaker.
Dion. Yeah, Rick. Hey, trust me, everybody's had a piece
Dion's
of
got
that.
him now.
Dion's got him now because he knows. Oh, you need a Ric Flair of recruiting. That's Tim Brewster, baby.